The sound of police sirens outside my house froze my blood. 2 officers stood at my door asking about my 7-year-old son, Jake. My sister Tracy had accused him of deliberately harming her infant daughter while I was at work. The betrayal cut deep. Tracy was more than family. She was our support system after my wife died. As they asked to speak with Jake, his terrified eyes met mine. That moment changed everything I thought I knew about family, truth, and the lengths I would go to protect my son. I never imagined I would be standing in my living room watching police officers question my 7-year-old son. Jake sat on our faded blue couch, his small frame practically swallowed by the cushions, his dinosaur socks barely touching the hardwood floor. His voice was so small when he kept repeating, "I didn't do it, Daddy. I promise I didn't do it." 2 years ago, I lost my wife Sarah to an aggressive form of cancer. The doctors had given her 6 months, but she was gone in 3. Jake was only 5 then, too young to fully comprehend what was happening, but old enough to feel the devastating loss. I was 34, suddenly a widower and a single father, with a demanding job as an architectural engineer. The grief was overwhelming, but Jake needed me. We learned to navigate our new reality together, creating new routines and finding moments of joy amidst the pain. 6 months ago, my sister Tracy moved to our town with her husband Gordon. She had just given birth to Emma and wanted to be closer to family. I was grateful for the support. Tracy would watch Jake after school while I finished work, and on weekends, we would often have family dinners together. Jake seemed to love his baby cousin at first, always wanting to help feed her or make her smile. Tracy became the female presence in his life that he desperately needed. That morning had started like any other Tuesday. I dropped Jake off at school, kissed him goodbye, and headed to the office. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Tracy, hysterical and barely coherent. "Abel, you need to come home now." Jake tried to hurt Emma. I found him standing over her crib with a pillow, and she was crying with a bruise on her cheek. I called the police. My heart stopped. "What?" "Tracy, that can't be right. Jake would never." "I saw him, Abel, with my own eyes. He's been jealous of her for weeks now. I've noticed him glaring at her when he thinks I'm not looking. He resents the attention I give her." I rushed out of the office without explanation, my mind racing with confusion and disbelief. Jake was a gentle child who cried when we found a dead bird in our yard last spring. He couldn't hurt anyone, especially not a baby. When I pulled into our driveway, a police car was already parked outside. I found 2 officers in my living room, Tracy holding Emma tightly against her chest, and Jake sitting alone, looking terrified. "Mr. Carter, I'm Officer Daniels, and this is Officer Rivera," the taller policeman said. "We need to ask your son some questions about an incident with his cousin." "Jake is 7 years old," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He doesn't understand what's happening." "Daddy, I just wanted to see the baby," Jake said, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't do anything wrong." Tracy stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. "He's lying, Abel." I walked in and caught him red-handed with a pillow over Emma's face. "Look at her cheek." She tilted Emma slightly to reveal a small bruise forming near her eye. The front door slammed open, and Gordon burst in, his face red with fury. "Where is he? Where's the little monster who hurt my daughter?" "Gordon, please," I said, stepping between him and Jake. "We don't know what happened yet." "I'll tell you what happened," he spat. "Your son attacked my defenseless baby, and I want him charged. Tracy's been telling me for weeks he's been acting strange around Emma." Officer Rivera pulled out a notepad. "Mrs. Lewis, you mentioned you've documented previous incidents." Tracy nodded, pulling out her phone. "Yes, look. 3 days ago, Emma had scratches on her arm after Jake was playing with her. Last week, I found her pacifier missing right after Jake visited her room. And the week before that, she suddenly started crying when Jake approached her crib." My mind was reeling. These were all normal interactions that Tracy was suddenly recasting in a sinister light. The scratches had been from Emma's own tiny fingernails. We had even discussed trimming them. The missing pacifier had turned up in the laundry basket. "Jake, I knelt before my son. Did you do anything to hurt baby Emma today?" His eyes, so much like his mother's, looked directly into mine. No, Daddy, I promise. I just wanted to look at her. The pillow was already in the crib. I believed him. In my core, I knew my son. But as I turned around, I saw doubt and accusation on everyone else's faces. Tracy was crying now. Gordon was barely containing his rage, and the officers were exchanging glances that sent chills down my spine. Mr. Carter, Officer Daniels said, "We're going to need to contact Child Protective Services. This is a serious allegation." In that moment, I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding that would be cleared up by dinner time. My son had been accused of something terrible, and my own sister was leading the charge against him. The foundation of trust I thought we had built was crumbling beneath my feet, and I had no idea how to stop it. The next 48 hours were a nightmare of questioning and scrutiny. A social worker named Miss Patel arrived the following morning to interview Jake separately. I paced outside the door of his bedroom, straining to hear their conversation, torn between wanting to protect him and knowing that interfering would only make things worse. Tracy and Gordon had taken Emma to the pediatrician, who confirmed the bruise was consistent with applied pressure, but couldn't definitively state its cause. That didn't stop Tracy from declaring with certainty to anyone who would listen that Jake had deliberately tried to smother her daughter. By Wednesday evening, my parents had driven in from Connecticut. I expected their support, but the conversation in our kitchen that night shattered that hope. "Abel, you need to consider that Jake might need professional help," my father said, stirring his coffee with unusual concentration. "Dad, he's a 7-year-old boy who lost his mother. He's not violent." My mother reached across the table to take my hand. "Honey, trauma affects children in unpredictable ways. Tracy showed us the pictures of those other incidents with Emma. There's a pattern. Those aren't incidents." I pulled my hand away. "They're normal interactions that Tracy is twisting. Why would your sister lie about something like this?" my father demanded. I had no answer that made sense. Tracy and I had always been close. She had been my rock after Sarah died. What reason would she have to suddenly turn against Jake? Thursday morning brought another blow. Miss Patel called to inform me that Jake's schoolteacher, Miss Brennan, had reported that Jake had been drawing concerning pictures over the past few weeks. "What kind of pictures?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "Dark imagery, figures lying down. Miss Brennan was concerned enough to save them, but didn't want to alarm you immediately." That afternoon, I went to the school during my lunch break. Miss Brennan greeted me with sympathy in her eyes that made me want to scream. "Mr. Carter, I'm so sorry about what your family is going through. Please, just show me these drawings everyone's so concerned about." She pulled out a folder and spread several crayon drawings across her desk. My heart sank, but not for the reason she thought. They weren't violent images at all. They were drawings of a woman lying down with a bright light around her, sometimes with a small boy holding her hand. "Jake told me these were dreams he has about his mom," Miss Brennan explained. "I thought they represented death fixation, but now, with what happened with the baby—" "These are pictures of his mother," I said, my voice breaking. "He's processing his grief, not plotting violence." Miss Brennan looked unconvinced. Children often express their inner turmoil through art, combined with what happened with his cousin. I collected the drawings and left, fury and helplessness battling inside me. Everyone seemed determined to reinterpret my son's entire existence through the lens of this one accusation. That evening, my family gathered for dinner at my parents' hotel restaurant. It was supposedly to discuss next steps, but it felt more like a tribunal. Jake sat silently beside me, pushing pasta around his plate while the adults talked about him as if he wasn't there. "I think Jake should stay with us for a while," my mother suggested gently, "just until things calm down." "He's not going anywhere," I said firmly. "He stays with me." Tracy, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Abel, you're in denial. Emma isn't safe with Jake around. None of us are saying he's a bad kid, but he needs help that you can't provide while working full-time." "Tracy's right," Gordon added. "We're considering requesting a temporary restraining order to keep him away from Emma." "A restraining order? He's 7 years old." I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward, causing several diners to turn and stare. "This has gone far enough. Jake hasn't done anything wrong, and I won't have him treated like a criminal." Jake tugged at my sleeve, tears in his eyes. "Daddy, can we go home now?" I looked around the table at the faces of my family, concern, judgment, and worst of all, fear when they looked at my son. "Yes, buddy, we're leaving." As we walked to the car, a voice called out behind us. "Abel, wait up." It was Sam, my neighbor from across the street. He jogged over, slightly out of breath. "Hey man, I heard about what happened from Diane at the corner store. This town and its gossip, you know?" "Yeah, news travels fast," I said bitterly. Sam glanced at Jake, who had climbed into the back seat. "Look, I don't want to overstep, but my security cameras cover part of your front yard and driveway. I installed them after that string of car break-ins last year. If it would help clear things up, you're welcome to look through the footage from Tuesday." For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. "Sam, that might actually be incredibly helpful. Thank you." As we drove home, I looked at Jake in the rearview mirror. He had fallen asleep, exhaustion finally overtaking him. His face, so much like Sarah's, was peaceful in sleep, unburdened by the accusations and confusion of waking life. Back at home, I carried him to bed and tucked him in, then sat on the edge of his dinosaur-patterned comforter. "I believe you, Jake," I whispered, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "And I'm going to prove that you didn't do anything wrong." As I turned off his light, my phone buzzed with a text from my boss. "Abel, we need to discuss your sudden absences. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Another problem to add to the growing pile." But as I closed Jake's door, I clung to the one new hope: Sam's security cameras. Maybe, just maybe, they had captured something that could help us. By Friday morning, the strain was starting to show on both of us. Jake had woken up twice during the night with nightmares, and dark circles shadowed his eyes as he picked at his breakfast. I had called the school to let them know he wouldn't be attending for the rest of the week. The last thing he needed was to face whispers and stares from classmates who had undoubtedly heard rumors. "Do I have to talk to the police again?" he asked in a small voice. "No, buddy, not today. But Miss Patel might come back to ask you some more questions." He nodded, pushing his cereal bowl away. "Nobody believes me, not even Grandma and Grandpa." "I believe you," I said firmly, "and we're going to figure this out." My meeting with Bill, my boss at the architectural firm, went about as well as expected. "Abel, I understand you're going through a family crisis, but we're in the middle of the Westridge project. The client is breathing down my neck about those revised plans." "I know, Bill. I'm sorry. I can work remotely as much as possible, but I need to be available for my son right now." Bill sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. "Take emergency family leave. 3 weeks, unpaid. That's the best I can do. After that, we need you back full-time or we'll have to reassign your projects." It was both a lifeline and a ticking clock. 3 weeks without pay would strain our finances, but it gave me time to clear Jake's name. I thanked him and headed straight to Sam's house to look at the security footage. Sam was a recently divorced software developer who worked from home. His house directly faced mine across our quiet suburban street. "I've got footage going back about a month," he explained as he pulled up the security system on his computer. 4 camera angles covering my property, but one of them catches your driveway and front yard. Not sure if it'll help, but you're welcome to look." I spent hours at Sam's dining room table, scanning through footage from Tuesday afternoon. The camera's angle only showed a partial view of my front door and driveway, but I could clearly see Tracy arriving with Emma around 11 that morning, entering with her key, and then the police arriving at 2:30. Nothing unusual or revealing. As I was about to give up, something caught my eye. At 1:45, about 15 minutes before Tracy's frantic call to me, I saw her rush out of my house to her car, retrieve something from the trunk, and hurry back inside. The resolution wasn't great, but her movements seemed frantic, urgent. "Can you save this clip for me?" I asked Sam. "Sure, man. Anything else looking suspicious?" I shook my head. "Not really. I was hoping for some smoking gun, but this is pretty inconclusive." "You know," Sam said hesitantly, "I've got another camera on the side of my house that faces your backyard. It's mostly to watch my grill and patio furniture, but it might show something." This footage was even less revealing. just occasional glimpses of Tracy through my kitchen window. But then Sam pointed at the screen. Wait, does your sister normally pace like that? In the footage, Tracy could be seen walking back and forth in front of my kitchen window, appearing to talk to herself, gesturing emphatically. This was about an hour before the alleged incident. She seems really agitated, Sam observed. Yeah, she does. A knot formed in my stomach. What was going on with Tracy? I thanked Sam and headed home, my mind racing. When I arrived, Miss Patel's car was in the driveway. Inside, I found her sitting with Jake at the kitchen table, a series of cards spread out between them. Mr. Carter, she greeted me with a professional nod. Jake and I were just finishing up. How's it going? I asked, directing the question to Jake rather than Miss Patel. Jake shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Miss Patel gathered her cards. We've been discussing feelings, particularly about family. Jake, would you like to go play for a few minutes while I talk to your dad? Once Jake was out of earshot, her expression grew serious. Mr. Carter, Jake is showing signs of emotional distress, consistent with either guilt or trauma from false accusation. Without more evidence either way, it's difficult to determine which. He's innocent, I said firmly. He's traumatized because everyone he trusted suddenly thinks he's capable of hurting a baby. I understand your position, but I need to inform you that I'll be conducting a home assessment next week. In the meantime, all contact between Jake and his cousin should be supervised. After she left, I found Jake in his room, building an elaborate fortress out of Lego blocks. Hey, buddy. You okay? He nodded without looking up. Miss Patel thinks I'm bad. No, she doesn't. She's just trying to understand what happened. Nothing happened. He knocked over part of his creation in frustration. I didn't hurt Emma. I was just looking at her, and then Aunt Tracy started screaming. I sat down on the floor beside him. Jake, can you tell me exactly what you remember from that day? Everything you saw and heard? He was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then, in a whisper, there was someone else in Emma's room. My heart skipped a beat. What? Who? I don't know. When I went to see Emma, I heard voices. I thought it was Aunt Tracy talking to the baby, but when I peeked in, I saw, I don't know, someone by the crib. Then Aunt Tracy came running in from the bathroom and started yelling at me. Jake, why didn't you tell the police this? Tears welled in his eyes. Because no one believes me anyway. And Aunt Tracy said it was just me and her and Emma in the house. That night, after Jake went to bed, I received a text from Gordon. We're filing for an emergency protection order tomorrow. Tracy doesn't feel safe with Jake unmonitored. This isn't personal, Abel. It's about protecting Emma. I threw my phone across the room, where it hit the wall and clattered to the floor. How had everything spiraled so far out of control? My son was being treated like a criminal. My sister was pursuing legal action against us, and my career was hanging by a thread. As I picked up my phone to check for damage, I noticed Jake's school backpack in the corner of the living room. On a hunch, I unzipped the front pocket and found a small notebook with dinosaurs on the cover. Inside were Jake's private thoughts and observations, written in the careful handwriting of a second grader. One entry from 2 weeks ago caught my eye. Aunt Tracy was crying in the bathroom again today. She didn't know I heard. She keeps saying she can't do it anymore. I think she misses having fun like before Emma was born. And another from just 3 days before the incident. Aunt Tracy forgot to feed Emma lunch. The baby cried for a long time. I gave her the pacifier and she stopped. Aunt Tracy was sleeping on the couch. A chill ran through me. These weren't the observations of a jealous child plotting harm. They were the innocent notes of a boy witnessing something concerning in the adult world around him, something I had completely missed. I called Sam. I need another favor. How far back does your security footage go? About 30 days. Why? I need to see every bit of footage you have of my house and Tracy's visits. There's something bigger going on here. Saturday morning, I dropped Jake off at his friend Zach's house. Zach's mother, Heather, was one of the few parents who hadn't pulled away from us since the accusations surfaced. He can stay as long as you need, she assured me. Zach's been asking about him. Thanks, Heather. I'm trying to sort through some things that might help clear this up. She squeezed my arm. For what it's worth, I've known Jake since preschool. That boy wouldn't hurt a fly. At Sam's house, we set up a more systematic review of his security footage, going back a full month before the incident. What began to emerge was deeply troubling. The side camera, that partially captured my backyard, also had a clear view of Tracy's car whenever she parked in my driveway. Over the past month, there were at least 6 instances where Tracy arrived with Emma, entered my house, then left the baby in the car for 5 to 15 minutes, while she went inside first. That's not normal, Sam said, voicing my thoughts. Why would she leave an infant in the car? Even more concerning were the clips showing Tracy through my kitchen window. In multiple instances, she appeared to be arguing with someone who wasn't there, gesturing wildly, then suddenly stopping and composing herself when Jake entered the room. Have you noticed anything unusual about your sister lately? Sam asked carefully. She's been under a lot of stress with the new baby, I admitted. Gordon works long hours, and she's essentially a single parent during the day. But we continued reviewing footage, creating a timeline of Tracy's visits. Then we found it Tuesday's footage from a different angle. At 1:30, 15 minutes before the alleged incident, Tracy was visible through my dining room window, holding Emma. The baby appeared to be crying. Tracy looked exhausted, frustrated. Then, in a moment that made my blood run cold, she seemed to lose her balance or her grip. There was a jerky motion, and though the camera angle didn't show everything, it was clear that Emma had fallen or been dropped. Tracy's reaction was immediate panic. She picked up Emma, checking her frantically, then looked around as if making sure no one had seen. "Oh my God," I whispered. She dropped her. "Keep watching," Sam said grimly. 10 minutes later, the footage showed Tracy running out to her car, retrieving something, then rushing back inside. Shortly after, Jake came into view, visible through the kitchen window as he returned home from school. He went inside, and approximately 5 minutes later, all hell broke loose. Tracy running to the front door, screaming, then making a phone call. "She set him up," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "She dropped Emma, the baby was hurt, and she blamed Jake." Sam nodded slowly. "It looks that way, but why?" I thought about Jake's notebook entries, Tracy's strange behavior in the videos, her apparent conversations with herself. I think something's wrong with Tracy, something serious. That afternoon, I met with Diane Mitchell, a lawyer Sam had recommended. I brought copies of the security footage, Jake's notebook, and a detailed timeline of events. "This is compelling circumstantial evidence," Diane said after reviewing everything, "but it's not definitive proof of your sister's actions. The camera angles don't explicitly show her harming the child or planting evidence. A good prosecutor could argue alternative interpretations, so it's not enough to clear Jake? For the police and CPS? Possibly. For a complete family reconciliation? That's more complicated. I suggest you proceed cautiously. If your sister is experiencing a mental health crisis, confronting her directly could make things worse." I left Diane's office with a plan not to publicly accuse Tracy, but to carefully gather everyone involved and reveal what I'd found. But first, I needed to understand what might be happening with my sister. That evening, after picking up Jake from Zach's, I called my mother. "Mom, has Tracy ever had issues with depression or anxiety before?" "Why do you ask?" Her voice was instantly guarded. "I'm trying to understand what's happening. This whole situation doesn't make sense unless there's something else going on." There was a long pause. After Tracy had Emma, her doctor mentioned watching for signs of postpartum depression. She was prescribed medication, but she insisted she didn't need it, said it made her too foggy. And no one thought to mention this to me when she was watching my son every day. "Abel, postpartum depression is common and usually manageable. We had no reason to think that she might fabricate accusations against a 7-year-old? No, probably not." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Mom, I need you and Dad to come over tomorrow morning. Bring Tracy and Gordon. Tell them I want to apologize and start healing our family. You're not planning something confrontational, are you? Your sister is fragile right now. No confrontation, just clarity." The next morning, I asked Sam to keep Jake at his house, playing video games and staying well away from windows. Then I set up my laptop in the living room, queued up the most revealing footage, and waited for my family to arrive. They came together, my parents, Tracy holding Emma, and Gordon looking stern and uncomfortable. Tracy's appearance shocked me. She was pale, with dark circles under her eyes, her hair unwashed. She wouldn't meet my gaze. "Thank you for coming," I began carefully. "I know this has been a horrible week for all of us. I've been doing some reflecting, and I realize there are things we all might have missed." My father nodded encouragingly. "That's a mature perspective, son. Before we talk about Jake, I want to ask Tracy something." I turned to my sister. "Tracy, how are you really doing? Since Emma was born, I mean." Her eyes darted up, suspicious. "What do you mean?" "I'm fine, because it's okay if you're not. Postpartum depression and anxiety are incredibly common. Who told you?" She shot an accusing look at our mother. "I don't have depression. I'm just tired, like any new mother." Gordon put his arm around her. "What are you implying, Abel?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm concerned about my sister." I took a deep breath. "And I'm concerned about what really happened to Emma on Tuesday." Tracy stiffened. "We know what happened. Your son—" "No," I interrupted gently. "I don't think that's what happened at all." I turned my laptop around. My neighbor's security cameras have an interesting view of our houses. I played the clip showing Tracy dropping Emma, her panic, her looking around to see if anyone had witnessed it. The room went completely silent. Tracy's face drained of what little color it had. Gordon stared at the screen, then at his wife, incomprehension slowly giving way to horror. "Tracy," he whispered, "what did you do?" She began to shake. That's not what it looks like." "I tripped. It was an accident." "I believe you," I said softly. "Accidents happen. But what happened next wasn't an accident." I played the footage showing her retrieving something from her car, then the timeline of Jake arriving home, followed by her frantic call to police. "You blamed a 7-year-old child for your accident," my father said, his voice breaking. "Your own nephew." Tracy suddenly stood, clutching Emma to her chest. "You don't understand. None of you understand what it's like. Day after day, no sleep, no help, no escape." Her voice rose hysterically. "Abel and Jake with their perfect little life. Everyone cooing about how brave they are, how well they're coping. What about me? Who helps me?" Gordon reached for the baby. "Tracy, you need to calm down. Give me Emma." "No." She backed away. "You're all turning against me, just like the voices said you would." "Voices?" my mother echoed, alarmed. Tracy's eyes were wild now. "They started after Emma was born, telling me I'm a terrible mother, that everyone can see my failures, that it would be better if—" She choked on a sob. "If I just disappeared. But then they said maybe it wasn't me who should disappear." Gordon was on his feet now. "Tracy, give me our daughter. Right now." She looked at the baby in her arms as if seeing her for the first time. Something in her expression shifted, softened. Then she looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Abel. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happening to me." She handed Emma to Gordon, then collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was changing her diaper, and I got dizzy." She fell. I thought she was fine. But then the bruise started showing, and I panicked. The voices said everyone would blame me, take her away from me, that no one would believe it was an accident. My mother moved to sit beside her, holding her as she cried. "Tracy, you're not well. This isn't just depression. You need help." "I know," she whispered. "I know something's wrong with me. I've known for weeks, but I was afraid to say anything." Gordon's face was ashen. "Why didn't you tell me? All those nights you said you were fine." "Because I'm supposed to be happy," Tracy cried. "Everyone says having a baby is the most wonderful experience of your life. What kind of monster isn't happy about her own child?" As we sat there, absorbing the terrible truth of what had happened, Tracy suddenly lurched to her feet. "I need to go. I can't stay here. You all hate me now." "No one hates you," I said, moving to block the door. But you need help, Tracy. Professional help. She tried to push past me. Let me go. Let me take Emma. And go. Gordon stood firm, cradling our niece. You're not taking her anywhere right now. You're not well. Tracy's face contorted with rage, then fear, then despair. She sank to the floor, curling into herself. Please help me, she whispered. I don't want to feel like this anymore. My father was already on the phone with emergency services, explaining the situation in a shaky voice. As we waited for help to arrive, I texted Sam, keep Jake there a little longer. We're getting Tracy the help she needs. In the midst of this family crisis, there was one small comfort: my son was innocent, and soon everyone would know it. But as I watched my sister rocking back and forth on my living room floor, I realized that the truth, while vindicating for Jake, had revealed something far more painful than we could have imagined. The paramedics arrived within 10 minutes, followed closely by a police officer, the same Officer Rivera, who had questioned Jake days earlier. Tracy was calm by then, drained and defeated. She went with the paramedics voluntarily after kissing Emma goodbye and whispering an apology to Gordon. Officer Rivera took statements from everyone present. When I showed him the security footage, his professional demeanor cracked slightly. We should have investigated more thoroughly, he admitted. With children involved, we tend to err on the side of caution. I understand that, I said. But my son has been traumatized by this accusation. His own family thought he was capable of violence. I'll make sure this evidence is properly documented. We'll need statements from Jake as well, but it looks like the case against him will be closed. After the police left, the remaining adults sat in stunned silence. Gordon held Emma, staring down at her with a mixture of love and horror at what might have happened. I had no idea, he said finally. She told me she was tired, emotional, normal new mom stuff. I never imagined. He looked up at me, eyes hollow. Abel, I am so sorry. What we accused Jake of, it's unforgivable. My mother was sobbing quietly on the couch. I failed both my children. I should have seen that Tracy needed help, and I should have believed in Jake. We all missed the signs, I said, though the words felt inadequate. Tracy hid her struggles well. Not well enough, my father countered. There were clues, her irritability, how she'd sometimes zone out mid-conversation. Even her accusations against Jake, they were so extreme, so unlikely. We should have questioned them more. What happens now? Gordon asked, his voice breaking. For Tracy? For all of us? Tracy gets treatment, I said firmly. Jake's name gets cleared, and we all work on rebuilding trust. What about Emma? My mother asked, looking at the baby sleeping peacefully in Gordon's arms, unaware of the chaos around her. Gordon swallowed hard. I'll need to file for emergency custody, at least until Tracy is stable. We'll help, my father assured him. Whatever you need. I left them discussing logistics and walked across the street to Sam's house. Jake was sitting on the living room floor with Sam's son Ethan, building an elaborate racetrack for toy cars. Dad, he jumped up when he saw me. Ethan has all the monster speedway pieces I was missing. For a moment, I just watched him animated, excited, a normal 7-year-old boy without a malicious bone in his body. The unfairness of what he'd been put through hit me anew. That's awesome, buddy. Are you having fun? Yeah. Can I stay longer? Sam appeared from the kitchen with a questioning look. I gave him a subtle nod. Things had gone as planned. Actually, Jake, we should head home now. But maybe you can come back and play tomorrow. Back at our house, my parents and Gordon had left to meet Tracy at the hospital. I sat Jake down to explain what had happened in terms he could understand. Aunt Tracy is sick right now, I began carefully. Not a cold or flu kind of sick, but sick in her mind. Sometimes after moms have babies, their brains can get confused and make them think scary things that aren't real. Jake considered this. Like how I thought there were monsters under my bed when I was little. Similar to that, yes. But Aunt Tracy's confusion made her blame you for something you didn't do. Emma got hurt by accident when Tracy was holding her, but Tracy was so scared that she said you did it. So, everyone knows I didn't hurt Emma now? Yes. Everyone knows you're innocent, and they're all very sorry they didn't believe you. He was quiet for a moment, processing. Is Aunt Tracy going to get better? I think so. The doctors are going to help her, but it might take some time. Can I see Emma? I miss her. His capacity for forgiveness humbled me. Soon, buddy. Uncle Gordon needs some time to take care of her right now. That night, as I tucked Jake into bed, he asked the question I'd been dreading. Dad, why didn't anyone believe me? I sat on the edge of his bed, searching for the right words. Sometimes adults make mistakes. We think we're protecting someone, but we end up hurting someone else instead. Everyone who doubted you feels terrible about it now. Even Grandma and Grandpa, especially them. They love you very much, Jake. He nodded, but I could tell the hurt wasn't so easily erased. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild, a lesson our entire family was learning the hard way. The following day, Monday, brought new developments. Tracy had been diagnosed with postpartum psychosis, a rare but serious condition that can include delusions, hallucinations, and irrational behavior. She would remain hospitalized for at least 2 weeks for stabilization, followed by intensive outpatient treatment. Gordon came by with Emma to apologize to Jake in person. My son was shy at first, hanging back behind my legs. Hey Jake, Gordon said, kneeling to his level. I made a big mistake. I didn't listen when you said you didn't hurt Emma. I was wrong, and I'm very sorry. Jake peeked around me. Is Aunt Tracy still mad at me? Gordon shook his head. No, buddy. Aunt Tracy isn't mad at you. She's confused right now, but the doctors are helping her think more clearly. She feels very sad about what happened. Jake moved forward cautiously and reached out to touch Emma's tiny hand. Hi, Emma. I missed you. The baby gurgled and grasped his finger, bringing a smile to Jake's face, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in days. As Gordon was leaving, he pulled me aside. There's something else you should know. I've been talking with Tracy's doctors about her history. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. What do you mean? He lowered his voice. In college, she apparently accused a roommate of stealing her research papers and sabotaging her grades. It resulted in a university investigation. The roommate was eventually cleared, but Tracy never acknowledged, making a false accusation. Her parents, your parents, helped smooth things over. The revelation sent a chill through me. They never told me. They probably thought it was an isolated incident. Tracy was under extreme stress with finals, not sleeping. Sound familiar? I nodded slowly. Have you told her doctors this? Yes. They said it could indicate an underlying condition that was exacerbated by the hormonal changes of pregnancy and childbirth. After Gordon left, I called my parents. Their admission was reluctant but revealing. We thought it was behind her, my father explained. She had therapy for almost a year afterward, took medication for anxiety. The doctors said she was fine. And you never thought this information might be relevant when she accused Jake of attacking an infant. Abel, try to understand. We never connected the two incidents. That was 12 years ago, when she was barely 20. Well, now we know better, I said. And we all need to do better by both Tracy and Jake. The hardest decision came that evening, after Jake was in bed. I called Diane, the lawyer. I need to know my options for pressing charges against my sister. Pressing charges? Are you sure that's the direction you want to go? Not criminal charges. I know she's ill. But I need something official on record that completely exonerates Jake and acknowledges what really happened. I can't risk this situation recurring, or some version of it affecting Jake's life down the road, Diane sighed. There are options. A civil complaint for defamation. A formal statement with CPS. But are you prepared for what this will do to your family? My family is already broken, Diane. Now I need to make sure my son is protected. The next 2 weeks were a careful balancing act, supporting Jake's recovery, while navigating the complex legal and medical situations surrounding Tracy. Child Protective Services officially closed their case against Jake, with a formal letter acknowledging that the allegations were unfounded. But the damage to his reputation and sense of security wasn't so easily repaired. His first day back at school was particularly difficult. Despite my meeting with the principal and teachers beforehand, whispers and stares followed him through the hallways. Ryan's mom won't let him come to my birthday party, he confided after school, trying to hold back tears. She says I'm dangerous. I called Ryan's mother that evening. Jake was completely exonerated, I explained. My sister has been diagnosed with a serious mental health condition that caused her to make false accusations. I'm sorry about your sister, she replied stiffly, but I have to think of my son's safety first. It was a response we encountered repeatedly as news of what happened spread through our community. People expressed sympathy, but kept their distance. The false accusation had planted a seed of doubt that facts couldn't entirely uproot. Gordon filed for temporary emergency custody of Emma, with no objection from Tracy's medical team. My parents tried to split their support between their daughter and grandson, spending mornings at the psychiatric facility with Tracy and afternoons with Jake and me. Tracy's treatment progressed slowly. Her doctors adjusted her medications several times, trying to find the right balance to address her symptoms without the side effects she'd previously found intolerable. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder with psychotic features, likely present for years but dramatically worsened by the hormonal changes of pregnancy and the stress of new motherhood. She's starting to understand what happened, my mother reported after one visit. The delusions are fading. She's asking about Jake, about how he's doing. It's too soon for them to see each other, I said firmly. Jake is still processing everything. Indeed, Jake had started seeing a child psychologist, Dr. Lewis, who specialized in trauma. Their sessions seemed to help, giving Jake a safe space to express his confusion and hurt. Jake is remarkably resilient, Dr. Lewis told me after their third session, but he's struggling with trust issues, understandably. He keeps asking why the adults in his life didn't believe him. What do I tell him? I asked helplessly. The truth, in age-appropriate terms, that adults make mistakes, that sometimes fear clouds judgment, and most importantly, that being disbelieved doesn't mean he did anything wrong. At work, Bill had been unexpectedly understanding once I explained the full situation. Take the time you need, he said. The Westridge project can wait a week or two. I worked remotely when possible, bringing Jake to the office with his tablet and headphones on days when I couldn't avoid in-person meetings. My colleagues were awkward at first, but gradually warmed to having him around. 3 weeks after Tracy's hospitalization, I received a call from my boss that took me by surprise. Abel Kent Davis from Davis & Shore called me today. They're looking for a project manager for their new mixed-use development. I recommended you. Davis & Shore was a prestigious firm in a city about 40 miles away. The opportunity would normally be exciting, but the timing seemed impossible. Bill, I appreciate that, but with everything going on, hear me out. It's a flexible position, 3 days in office, 2 remote. Better salary, better benefits, and maybe a fresh start would be good for you and Jake. A fresh start. The idea took root in my mind. A place where people didn't whisper when Jake walked by, where we weren't that family with the crazy sister who called the police on her nephew. That evening, I broached the subject with Jake over dinner. What would you think about moving to a new town? Not too far, so we could still see Grandma and Grandpa, but a new house, new school. He considered this seriously, chewing his spaghetti. Would people there know about what Aunt Tracy said about me? No. We'd have a clean slate. Would Uncle Gordon and Emma still visit us? Of course, if you want them to. He nodded slowly. I think I'd like that. But can we get a house with a big backyard? For a dog, maybe? For the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. I think that can be arranged. The decision to move wasn't just about escaping gossip. It was about reclaiming our narrative, building something new, instead of trying to repair what had been broken. I toured houses in the new city, enrolled Jake in a well-regarded elementary school, and accepted the position at Davis & Shore. As our plans solidified, I had to address the legal aspect of the situation. After much consideration, I decided against pressing charges or filing a civil complaint. Instead, I worked with Diane to draft a formal document signed by Tracy once she was stable enough acknowledging the false accusation, the circumstances surrounding it, and explicitly exonerating Jake of any wrongdoing. The document was notarized, and copies were provided to Jake's school, CPS, and the police department. This gives you legal protection without putting your sister through a court case, Diane explained. It's an unusual approach, but I think it's the right balance in this situation. Tracy was released from inpatient care after 4 weeks. She moved in with our parents temporarily while continuing intensive outpatient treatment. Gordon brought Emma for supervised visits 3 times a week. I had been avoiding seeing Tracy, making excuses whenever my parents suggested a meeting. But 2 days before our planned move, I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. We met at my parents' house, with my father present as a buffer. Tracy looked simultaneously better and worse than I expected, clearer-eyed but thinner, with a fragility that hadn't been there before. "Abel," she said softly when I entered, "thank you for coming." "Jake's with Sam," I said, answering the unspoken question. "He's not ready to see you yet." She nodded, eyes filling with tears. "I understand. I wouldn't be ready to see me either." We sat in awkward silence, until my father excused himself to make coffee, leaving us alone. "Gordon told me you're moving," Tracy said. "I want you to know I think it's the right decision. For Jake. It's not just because of what happened," I said, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. "Abel, I need to say this, and I need you to hear me." She sat up straighter, meeting my eyes directly. "What I did was unforgivable. I know that. I was sick, but that's not an excuse. I betrayed Jake in the worst possible way, and I betrayed you too. Tracy, please let me finish. I've been working on this in therapy." She took a deep breath. "I've had episodes before, not this severe, but signs that something wasn't right. I ignored them. I stopped taking medication that helped because I didn't like how it made me feel. I put my comfort above everyone's safety, and Emma and Jake paid the price for that. The doctors say with proper treatment, yes, I can manage this, and I will, every day for the rest of my life. But that doesn't undo the harm I caused." She wiped away tears. "I signed the document your lawyer drafted. It was the least I could do. But I want you to know that I will spend the rest of my life trying to make this right, even if Jake never feels comfortable around me again." I studied my sister, the person who had been my closest ally after Sarah died, who had helped me navigate single parenthood, and who had then shattered our family with a false accusation born of illness and desperation. "I believe you," I said finally, "and I forgive you, Tracy. But Jake's forgiveness will have to be on his timeline, if it comes at all." She nodded. "I know. Just tell him I love him when he's ready to hear it." As I left my parents' house that day, I felt a weight lift. Not completely, the pain and betrayal were still there, but enough to breathe more easily, to look toward our future in a new city with cautious optimism. The morning of our move, Sam and Heather came over to help load the last boxes into the moving truck. Jake was saying goodbye to Ethan, the 2 boys solemnly exchanging email addresses and promises to play online games together. "You know, you're welcome back any time," Sam told me as we closed up the truck. "Not everyone believed the rumors. I appreciate that, Sam. And everything else you did for us. We wouldn't have uncovered the truth without your help. That's what neighbors are for," he said simply. "Or friends, I should say." As we were about to leave, a car pulled up. It was Gordon, with Emma in her car seat. "We wanted to say goodbye properly," he explained, lifting Emma out of the car, "and to give Jake something." From the trunk, he produced a golden retriever puppy with a red bow around its neck. Jake's eyes widened in disbelief. "Your dad mentioned you wanted a dog for your new backyard," Gordon said, handing the squirming puppy to Jake. "Consider it a housewarming gift." Jake buried his face in the puppy's fur, shoulders shaking with emotion. When he looked up, his smile was radiant. "Thank you, Uncle Gordon. I'm going to name him Buddy." As we drove away from the only home Jake had ever known, with Buddy settling in the back seat beside him, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Jake was looking back at our house, his expression thoughtful. "You okay, Buddy?" I asked. He turned to me with eyes that seemed older, wiser than they had been a month ago. "Yeah, I'm ready for our new adventure." In that moment, I saw not just my son, but the man he would become, resilient, compassionate, and stronger for having weathered this storm. The road ahead might not be easy, but we would travel it together, one day at a time. 6 months after moving to our new home in Riverdale, Jake and I had settled into a rhythm that felt, if not completely normal, at least comfortable. Our house, a modest 3-bedroom with the promised big backyard, had become a true home. Buddy, now 3 times his original size but still convinced he was a lapdog, had been Jake's constant companion and emotional support. Jake's new school had been a fresh start. His teacher, Mr. Peterson, was energetic and engaging, and Jake had made several friends who regularly came over for playdates and video games. Without the shadow of false accusations hanging over him, Jake had gradually returned to the bright, curious child he'd been before. My position at Davis and Shore was challenging but rewarding. The flexible schedule meant I could be home when Jake finished school most days, and my colleagues were understanding on the rare occasions when family needs required last-minute adjustments. Tracy remained with our parents, continuing her treatment with a psychiatrist and therapist. Her medication regimen had stabilized, and according to my mother, she was doing well participating in a support group for mothers with postpartum mood disorders and slowly rebuilding her relationship with Emma. Gordon had filed for divorce shortly after we moved, a decision that surprised no one but saddened everyone. He and Emma visited us once a month, staying in a nearby hotel. Jake adored these visits, always eager to see how much Emma had grown and to show her new tricks he'd taught Buddy. She said, "Jake yesterday," Gordon reported during their most recent visit, as we watched the children play in the yard, or something close to it anyway. "He'll be thrilled," I said. "He's been trying to teach her his name for months." Gordon nodded, his expression softening as he watched his daughter. Tracy asked about seeing him again. "No pressure, just when he's ready." It was a conversation we'd had before. "I've talked to Dr. Lewis about it. She thinks Jake is making progress, but he still has anxiety about the situation. We need to follow his lead." "Of course," Gordon agreed. "I just wanted you to know she's asking for the right reasons now, not out of guilt or obligation, but because she genuinely misses him." That evening, after Gordon and Emma had left, I found Jake sitting on his bed, looking at an old family photo taken at Christmas the previous year before Emma was born, before everything fell apart. Tracy stood beside me in the picture, both of us smiling, with Jake in front wearing a Santa hat. "You miss her sometimes, don't you?" I asked, sitting beside him. He nodded slowly. "She used to make the best chocolate chip pancakes, and she knew all the dinosaur names, even the hard ones. Those were good times." "Dad?" He looked up at me, his expression serious. "Is Aunt Tracy still sick?" "She's getting better. She takes medicine now that helps her brain work the way it's supposed to, and she talks to doctors who help her understand her feelings." "Like I talked to Dr. Lewis?" "Similar, yes." He was quiet for a moment, thinking, "Do you think, someday, I could talk to Aunt Tracy? Not alone," he added quickly. "With you there." I put my arm around his shoulders. "If that's something you want, then yes, absolutely, whenever you're ready." "Not yet," he decided. "But maybe soon." 2 weeks later, my parents came to visit, bringing homemade lasagna and stories of their recent cruise. They'd been making regular trips to see us, gradually rebuilding their relationship with Jake after their initial doubt had damaged his trust in them. "He looks so happy," my mother observed as Jake showed my father how Buddy could now fetch the newspaper from the end of the driveway. "You both do." "We are," I said, surprised to realize how true it was. "It hasn't been easy, but we're in a good place now." "Tracy's been asking if she could write Jake a letter," my mother ventured carefully. "Nothing long or emotional. Just a start." I considered this. "Let me talk to Jake and Dr. Lewis. A letter might actually be good. It gives him control over when and how to engage." The letter arrived a week later, a simple card with a cartoon dinosaur on the front. Inside, Tracy had written just a few sentences. "Dear Jake, I miss you and think about you every day. I'm working hard to get better. Emma is starting to walk now and reminds me of you at that age. I hope you and Buddy are having fun adventures. Love always, Aunt Tracy." Jake read it silently, then handed it back to me without comment. But that night, I found him at the kitchen table with construction paper and markers, carefully drawing a picture of himself with Buddy. "Can we send this to Aunt Tracy?" he asked. "I'm not ready to write words yet, but maybe a picture?" "That's a wonderful idea," I assured him. Healing continued in small steps over the following months. Jake sent more drawings. Tracy replied with short, gentle notes about everyday things. A funny squirrel she saw in the park. A new dinosaur exhibit at the museum. Nothing pressuring or emotional, just bridges being carefully rebuilt. By the time the 1-year anniversary of the incident approached, life had found a new normal. I had been promoted at work. Jake was thriving in school and had joined a youth soccer team. We had friends in our new community who knew nothing of our past trauma. It was Jake who suggested the meeting, after a thoughtful conversation with Dr. Lewis. "I think I'm ready to see Aunt Tracy," he told me one evening. "Not at our house. Maybe at a park or something." We arranged to meet at a public garden halfway between our cities. Tracy would come with my parents. Gordon and Emma would join us later if things went well. The day was bright and clear, spring flowers blooming around us as we waited on a bench near the entrance. Jake fidgeted nervously, adjusting and readjusting his favorite dinosaur t-shirt. "Remember," I told him, "we can leave anytime you want. Just say the word." "I know, Dad. I'll be okay." When my parents' car pulled into the parking lot, Jake tensed beside me. Tracy emerged slowly from the back seat, looking nervous but composed. She spotted us and stopped, waiting for some signal that it was okay to approach. Jake stood, took a deep breath, and raised his hand in a small wave. Tracy walked toward us carefully, stopping a few feet away. "Hi, Jake," she said softly. "Thank you for meeting me." "Hi, Aunt Tracy." His voice was quiet but steady. There was an awkward pause, neither knowing quite what to say next. Then Tracy spoke again, her voice wavering slightly. "I brought something for you. Your mom gave it to me to keep safe a long time ago." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box. "It's her favorite seashell from your trip to Maine when you were 3. She wanted you to have it when you were older." Jake accepted the box, opening it to reveal a perfect spiral shell with hints of pink and gold. "I remember this," he said, wonderment in his voice. "Mom used to let me hold it during stories. She loved you so much, Jake. And so do I." Tracy's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry for what happened, for not being the aunt you deserved." Jake studied her face for a long moment. Then, with a maturity that took my breath away, he said, "Dr. Lewis says sometimes people get sick in their brains, just like they can get sick in their bodies. And it's not their fault, but they still have to work hard to get better." Tracy nodded, wiping away tears. "That's exactly right. And I am working hard, every single day." "Good," Jake said simply, "because Emma needs her mom to be healthy. And," he glanced up at me, then back at Tracy, "I kind of miss my aunt sometimes." My parents, who had been hanging back to give us space, approached cautiously. My father's eyes were suspiciously damp. "What do you say we all get some ice cream?" he suggested. "There's a stand near the fountain." As we walked together through the garden, Jake between Tracy and me, I marveled at the journey we had taken. A year ago, our family had been shattered by illness and accusation. Today, we were cautiously finding our way back to each other, forever changed but not destroyed. Later, when Gordon arrived with Emma, Jake proudly showed his cousin how to feed the ducks at the pond. "She's so big now," he observed. "And she knows my name." "She certainly does," Gordon confirmed. "Says it all the time." As the adults watched the children, Tracy spoke quietly to me. "Abel, I want you to know that I'll understand if Jake never fully trusts me again, but I'm grateful for this chance to at least be in his life." "Jake has a remarkable capacity for forgiveness," I replied. "He gets that from his mother. And from his father," Tracy added. "What you've done for him this past year, protecting him, supporting him, helping him heal, it's extraordinary." We stayed at the garden until late afternoon, the initial tension gradually giving way to something that, while not the easy familiarity of before, was at least peaceful coexistence. As we prepared to leave, Jake surprised everyone by giving Tracy a quick, shy hug. "Maybe next time you can visit our new house," he suggested. "Buddy would like to meet you." Tracy's smile was radiant through her tears. "I'd like that very much." On the drive home, Jake was thoughtful, turning his mother's seashell over and over in his hands. "Dad," he said finally, "I think Mom would be proud of us." "Why do you say that, buddy?" "Because we went through something really hard, but we didn't let it break us. And we're learning to forgive, even when it's super difficult. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror, this wise soul in a child's body. I think you're absolutely right, Jake. She would be incredibly proud of you. Of both of us, he corrected. We're a team, remember? Always. I promised. That night, as I tucked Jake into bed, with Buddy curled at his feet, I reflected on the lessons of the past year. How truth, while painful, ultimately heals. How family bonds can be bent almost to breaking but still find their way back to strength. How a child's capacity for resilience and forgiveness can humble and inspire the adults around him. Our story wasn't perfect. There were still difficult conversations ahead, boundaries to establish, trust to rebuild. But we had faced the darkest moment of our lives together and emerged on the other side, scarred but whole. Dad? Jake murmured sleepily. I'm glad we moved here, but I'm also glad we didn't forget about the people we left behind. Me too, buddy, I said, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your heart again after it's been broken, like you did after Mom died. Exactly like that. As I turned out his light, I knew that whatever challenges life might bring us next, we would face them with the wisdom and strength we'd gained through this journey. And that was a gift, however painfully won. Have you ever had to rebuild trust in a relationship after it was broken? Or found the courage to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might find hope in our journey. Thank you for joining us today. And remember that even in our darkest moments, healing and growth are possible.